I think we're all kind of on this journey of our financial situation. So this path that we take, maybe we want to learn to be better at managing our finances. Maybe we want to be a wiser investor. Maybe we want to be more effective with our giving. Maybe we support our church or charities that are near and dear to us. But that's kind of where Thrivent comes in. We're a unique organization that really helps you in all of those ways. So we are a not-for-profit financial services organization that's Christian-based. So we help Christians be wise with money to attain a life of contentment, confidence, and generosity. We're mission-driven, a membership-owned organization. So those that invest with us or have products or services through Thrivent are owners of the organization. We have more than 2 million members, and we offer a broad range of financial products and services. So we have insurance, investments, we provide advice, and banking as well. So we also provide members the opportunity to demonstrate generosity where you live, you work, and you worship. So those that are Thrivent members know about the generosity programs that Thrivent has, but we have a few different programs, and there is a little card in your folder that kind of shares a little bit about that. But the Thrivent Action Teams, those are a phenomenal program to give back to the community. Those that are members can very well attest to that. Habitat for Humanity, we have a branch with them, Thrivent Builds, do a lot of that. And then Thrivent Choice Dollars is another program that we utilize, and we won't get into the weeds about that, but if you're curious, if you have questions about any of that, I'd be happy to share that with you. So our standing in the financial industry is one mark of our commitment to support members. So we have actually Monday, the world's most ethical companies came out with their new list, and we were on the list again for 2020 as well. So we've been now for 10 years running on the world's most ethical companies list. Recognized for that. We're a Fortune 500 company. I like to say we're maybe one of the biggest companies that you've never heard of. We don't buy Super Bowl commercials. We don't use our dollars that way at all. Thrivent would rather you support an organization or a cause that is important to you. Our money goes to those generosity programs instead, that you get to delegate where those dollars go. Again, just running through the ways that we can help you. We provide advice. We have insurance. We have investments. We have many different platforms to that, whether you're new to that or you are a seasoned investor. We have banking, and then again, the generosity program. So if you'd like to learn more, tech savvy, those of you, Thrivent.com is a good place, or you can just give me a call. I'd be happy to share some more information with you. So securing and preserving your retirement strategy is the topic today, and this is going to cover, mostly it's going to address if you're in retirement or maybe just getting into retirement, and then kind of from there on. So the goal is that after you leave today's session, you'll better understand the opportunities available to you to help secure and preserve your retirement. We'll focus on determining your needs and wants when it comes to your retirement goals and plans upon the death of a spouse. We'll explore high-level concepts around protection and preservation, options for you to get started on a plan that provides for both the expected and the unexpected. I will say you'll learn a lot today, but it's a very good decision to work with your financial professional and also have some input from a tax professional to make sure that everything's coinciding and can help get into the specifics of your situation. Retirement goals. So most of you have entered into that phase of retirement, or maybe you're super close. I think I heard someone talking about they picked a date. So very close, or maybe you're in that retirement phase. So you've started taking the retirement distributions, the savings that you've spent a lot of time building, right? You've already addressed the issue of how will I generate enough income to support your lifestyle for the next 10, 20 years, maybe even longer. There's longevity is definitely picking up for us, so could be a very long time. So we want to make sure that that's being addressed, and most of you in that distribution phase have probably already dealt with that. Part of the strategy you put together likely involved minimizing your losses and your risks. Another important element of the strategy involves establishing a plan for your assets when you're no longer here to make those decisions. So kind of that legacy planning piece. So we're going to talk a little bit more about risks to your retirement plan, kind of what will derail your retirement plan. There's a number of different things that can derail our retirement plans. And so I think we could all probably agree that it's important to take these into consideration when we're developing our strategy so that you can still be comfortable and confident in meeting your retirement goals. Here's some ideas of really the 6 main risks that we want to address when we're doing that strategy. Inflation, longevity, market volatility and sequence of returns, income taxes, healthcare costs, and unpredictable events. The risk of inflation is always there. It's that elephant that never leaves the room. It can be detrimental, especially if on a fixed income, because it affects your purchasing power. So retirement assets, especially fixed payout options, pensions, can be very, very vulnerable to inflation because they don't increase, they remain the same. So longevity, life expectancy continues to rise. So challenges to make sure that you have enough income so you don't outlive your assets. So market volatility and sequence of returns, market downturns can definitely hurt retirement assets. Portfolios lose value. So you'll end up needing to sell more shares to get the same amount of income. Income taxes, most retirement income is subject to taxes. What can you do to minimize the impact of taxes? That's being tax efficient in your strategies is extremely helpful. Healthcare costs, again, that's another expense that continues to rise. Making sure that you know what your options are to alleviate that risk or to help derail some of those costs. And lastly, unpredictable events, long-term illness not covered by Medicare, a spouse's death that leaves you alone maybe longer than you both had planned. Okay, so we do not know when a death will occur. We cannot predict that. So it's critical that we identify the goals and begin to discuss your plans. So when we put together strategies, we want to make sure that your goals are met no matter when it happens. We're prepared regardless. So looking at what goals maybe are important to you. Maybe it's protecting your income. Maybe it's supplementing your retirement income. Maybe it's ensuring availability of funds for final expenses so that burden isn't there. Transferring of wealth. Who's going to be beneficiaries on assets? How can we do that transferring? Reducing estate taxes. And maybe some of you have a business or a farm. So then life expectancy statistics tell us that retirees could live 30 to 40 years into retirement. So depending on your age and the side of the averages that you fall on, it's just critical that we make sure that we are preparing for longer rather than shorter. So some key questions maybe to ask yourself just to kind of get the wheels turning. What happens when you or your spouse passes away? How will your spouse's retirement income be impacted? How will that surviving spouse be impacted? How will your family pay for your final expenses? What happens when both of you pass away? Is there a legacy plan? What happens with your assets? How can you make sure the right people and the right places receive the right amount with minimal transfer costs? tax efficiency coming into play there. So we'll look at this scenario here, the impact on a surviving spouse. So we've got Jim and Barb. Together, Jim's pension, $2,000, Jim's Social Security is $1,000, Barb's Social Security is $500 for a total of $3,500. Jim alone, if Barb passes first, gets $2,000 for his pension, $1,000 for his Social Security. Barb's Social Security goes away. So Jim is left with $3,000 a month. Barb alone, however, Jim's pension is $1,000. The Social Security is $1,000, and hers goes away. So maybe there wasn't a 100% survivorship option chosen on that pension plan. That can be an impact as well. So her income, she's lost $1,500 a month if Jim passes first. So we need to look at the impacts and keep in mind, because that can be detrimental. Do you think that a surviving spouse spends more or less than what they were spending when their spouse was alive? We find that most of the time they're spending more, if not the same, more, because they're not staying at home. They're getting out, they're traveling, they're visiting friends, they're socializing more. They're not wanting to just stay home alone in the house. So we find that most of the time that cost does not decrease. It typically increases. So an impact of $1,500 a month less is huge. The significance of this isn't necessarily the numbers, but the impact on their surviving spouse's lifestyle. So we just kind of covered that, but without your income, something to think about, what would your spouse or your partner be able to do? Would they be able to afford adequate health care or assistance, keep staying in the current home or staying in the community that you're in, continue to pay ongoing bills, including insurance, property taxes, income taxes, all of that, transportation and recreation expenses, and if, again, charitable giving is something that's important to you, can they continue to support church and the charities that you wish to support? Okay, so when we look at that, it's even more critical to address income levels when we look at what happens to our expenses along with declining income sources. So expenses that may actually increase your home maintenance costs. Maybe the spouse that passed was the one that mowed the lawn and you're not able to. So now you have to pay someone to mow your lawn. So maybe some of those, or they were the fixer-upper type. Now you have to pay someone to do it all for you. So there could be an increase in those costs. Maybe there's remaining healthcare bills. Those healthcare costs from that time before. Travel costs, again, can be, not everyone has those, but they can be in there. Anybody have an idea what happens to your income taxes if you're a surviving spouse? Does it decrease? No, it increases. So you'd be able to file a joint return for the year that the spouse passes, but going forward, that tax filing status, it increases. You're now a single filer. Final expenses. So we looked at the impact on retirement income following the death of a spouse. So when we look at expenses following a death, final expenses can be more than just funeral costs. Maybe there's probably cemetery charges or cremation charges, clerk or clergy fees, immediate household expenses, outstanding medical bills, unpaid debt, estate settlement costs, if that's a piece of it. Those are all kind of different things that can come into play as final expenses. And we know that funerals are getting up there in cost these days. They can end up being quite spendy. So we look at how we can help protect your spouse from these expenses and income changes. So when we talk about that legacy planning strategy, We think about retirement savings. Probably took you quite a few years to accumulate wealth that you're leaving behind. Both of you at some point will be gone. Plans made during your lifetime will ensure that you can satisfy your legacy plan, what your goal is, what you want to be done with those assets that you've spent so many years making. I can tell you one thing, spend it. That is a good idea. Spend it if you want. So there's always that strategy as well. When we look at this again, so we ask ourselves, who would you want to see inherit the money? Maybe it's your loved ones. Maybe, again, that charitable intent is there. What about the government? They like to be a beneficiary to a lot of our assets. So many people find that the government is an unexpected beneficiary to their assets, not realizing the impact that can have. So there's a couple of ways to reduce or eliminate the government share of your inheritance. These strategies can benefit your family, charities. It's just being strategic about what goes where and when. So each plan is definitely tailored to your specific situation, different assets in different places, and how it can be transferred in the most tax efficient manner. So there are definitely options out there though to reduce or eliminate the government's share. I put a pamphlet in here where we talk about maximizing your retirements. So it talks about the legacy planning, like a combined strategy. This is just one example of a way that you can look at that exact type of planning. There are a number of different strategies. Again, they get down to the uniqueness of your situation and how you want to, kind of what your purpose is, what you're wanting to do, what you're wanting to see happen. Protecting your strategy. So, keep in mind, we know, and you know as well, that your needs and wants throughout this process, throughout your retirement years, you have what you wanted when you first retired 30 years later is probably different, at that time. So your needs and your wants do change throughout that. And so one step in putting together the strategy, one step that we look at is life insurance to be able to do that. Life insurance is definitely a critical piece for protection of your loved ones if there's a premature death, right? So they've, maybe that plan's put into place. You've provided that gap coverage should your income be lost. While you've probably been told that your need for life insurance will disappear in retirement, this kind of visualization shares with you that the purpose for life insurance just changes along the way. We find that we have to ensure we have retirement income or that our surviving spouse does. So it's a way to fill in the missing dollars that may go away. When we looked at Jim and Barb's situation, life insurance would be a great way to supplement that $1,500 that Barb was lacking each month that she lost. When we look at this, it can also help with transferring that wealth to loved ones. So life insurance is a tax-free transfer of wealth. There's no taxes that need to be paid on those dollars. So permanent life insurance, term life insurance, or a combination of both may be the right strategy, depending on, again, what your purpose is, what your plan is. I did put, again, in this packet a little bit more information on this sheet, just going through some of the reasons maybe why you might want it. And in that Retire Wisely, there is a moving piece of life insurance that is laid out in there to show you that strategy as well. So the second step to take in building protection and preservation strategy is, again, identifying your goals. When thinking about, say, life insurance as a tool for the strategy, there's definitely a distinct difference between needing it and wanting it. Everyone's situation is different. The wants for life insurance is definitely unique for each individual, again, based on your plan, what you're wanting to do, what you're wanting to happen. Again, some of the reasons that you might need life insurance in retirement: replacing that lost retirement income, covering final expenses, leaving the family legacy, that legacy planning piece, or charitable giving can also be an option. Sometimes those premiums can be lower now, but you get to really leave an imprint for charitable giving if that was important to you. When you're, again, considering the need or want for life insurance, it's maybe a good idea to sit down and just kind of discuss what those goals and strategies are. You'll want to discuss how plans could change in the event that one of you passes. How would it be affected? Again, would there be an income gap? Maybe there's not. Maybe that's not one of the reasons. Would your living arrangements change? Maybe you would want to downsize. Maybe you want to stay where you are. How will we cover monthly expenses and bills? Again, maybe that's covered. And then again, the legacy piece there. The third step is personalizing that strategy. So again, considering how can I be certain that your retirement income is enough to maintain you or your spouse's lifestyle, regardless of what happens? What options are there to ensure payment of final expenses? And what's your desired legacy? So really the action steps that go along with this, identifying your goals, determining your best options to help meet those needs, wants, and desires. And then, of course, because things change, circumstances change, reviewing that purpose and what's happening annually is a very good idea. A year can go by pretty quick and we may think that we don't need to, but it's a very good idea to just have that conversation to make sure. So, but overall, a financial strategy, it's just not fully complete if you haven't considered what will happen in the event of a death of a spouse, because we know that it's not going to happen at the exact same time. We've went through quite of this rather quickly, but I'll just address some of these items in the folder here that I gave you. So we talked about a couple of them. This pyramid here, so this is the financial pyramid that we go through, and then on the back there's just some ideas. It's really just a kind of going through, probably a lot of you are in this distribution piece right here, and then maybe transitioning into the legacy piece there. So some reading material for you there. This sheet here talking about preparing for the market. How can prepare for retirement in any kind of market with guaranteed income? Maybe that's something that's become important to you over the last couple of days. So that's some good information to read. Higher tax environment. This is something that we're kind of trying to figure out how to deal with. Right now, tax environment's pretty low. If you're looking at the comparison, we've got national debt doing this, and we've got tax brackets doing this. There's a good, something's gonna change. What does that mean? Not entirely sure. I believe that they are saying the current tax brackets will sunset in 2025. So you will likely see, I don't know how we could get much lower. So of course, I'm not in politics, so I don't know for sure, but we're projecting that it's probably going to increase, the tax brackets are. So I personally am encouraging my clients, if you're looking, if you've got a big pre-tax bucket of dollars, start considering doing some conversions while you can leverage your lower tax brackets right now. Again, that comes into play working with a financial professional and a tax accountant together to get what those, I don't know, magic numbers would be, but seeing if you're able to sustain that impact, because down the road it could be worse, paying maybe if you're in the 20th percentile now versus if they increase it, maybe you're paying down the road at 30% instead. So we talked about derailment of our retirement plans. I know long-term care is something that is, people either people believe it's very expensive. You can't afford it, so I don't have it. I'm just gonna plan in other ways, or I'm just gonna, whatever happens, happens. So just wanted to share with you an idea with this flyer of what $100 a month can do. So just so you have an idea of what that looks like. Does anybody know what happens at age, it used to be 70 and a half and it just moved to age 72? Required minimum distributions. Some of you may be familiar with those already, but that's your window of opportunity to tax efficient plan is from 59 and a half to now age 72, to be able to maneuver those dollars where you have control of the amount of taxes that you pay. Once you hit 72, the IRS says you are absolutely taking, it's an algorithm, a certain percentage that it averages out to, and it increases each year until I think it peaks out at 82-ish, somewhere in there. And then it kind of decreases, but they're gonna force you, and regardless of where that throws you in a tax bracket, it doesn't matter. You don't have control anymore. So I think, going back to your question, I think it depends on where your assets are and what that looks like. Because if your child is inheriting a life insurance death benefit, you don't have to worry about taxes at all. If your child is inheriting an IRA, they're still taxed on it. The difference that we see is that you've got a child that's, in a lower tax bracket, maybe 10, 12, 13%, whatever, and you've got a child that's a doctor and they're in the 37th percentile. They're taxed at their tax rates. So you leave $100,000, they each get $100,000. One's getting taxed at 37%, the other's getting taxed at 15%. It's not an even payout. One's getting less than the other. Where you've got a life insurance benefit, it's an even amount. They're both getting $100,000 because it's tax-free. You don't have to worry about that. No animosity, no issues. Everyone's getting the same amount. None of the finger pointing of, well, you're not working and you got more than me, and I'm working and I got less. So it can help alleviate that type of situation. Or if it's for a spouse, again, it can help cover that gap of their taxes. When they turn into a single filer, or covering the income and not having to worry about taxes. Because again, your spouse, those assets, they're being taxed on that. One thing that I will tell you in the type of strategy planning that we do not have there isn't typically increased premiums. Whatever premium it comes back at, that's what your premium stays at. Many times, the flyers that you get in the mail all the time, oh yes, you can get this amount for this much, no underwriting done, and this is how much it is. Well, they're those renewable term policies, and they start increasing. You hit a certain age and suddenly your premium quadruples, and then the next year it doubles again, and then pretty soon you're spending $600 a month on life insurance and you have no idea how you got to that point. So those can be, I can tell you that the strategies that we use are premiums that do not increase. They are a flat premium.